you're above 200, where do you want to be, right? Well, here's a study that was done in 2019 looking at almost 13 million adults. So again, statistically massively significant. This was done in the journal Nature, which is if it's not the highest, it's one of the highest rated journals on the planet in terms of impact rating, which is how they score them. And so they want to look at total cholesterol and all-cause mortality by sex and age in 13 million people. And so, you know, what the marketing says is they do this. They say, whatever your total cholesterol level is and your risk of death, it looks like this, right? The higher your total cholesterol, the higher your risk of death. That's what they tell you. We just saw that that's not true indirectly, but now we can see it directly in this study of over 13 million people. It's not a linear curve like the one I just drew. It's actually U-shaped, especially when you get above age 35. There's prettier ones. Here we go. So from age 35 up, every decade, it's a U-shaped distribution in terms of your risk from cholesterol. So let me move myself all the way here. So if you see here, age 35 to 44, the higher you go below, or the further you go below 200, the higher your risk of death, okay? And the higher you go above 240, basically, the higher risk of death. So the sweet spot, if you're age 35 to 44, is about 220. That's golden. But in the US, the doctors will say, oh my gosh, you're gonna die. You need to be on a statin. You need to be lower, below 200. Oh, really? How far below, doc? Because we're increasing our risk. And at this age group, you can see the blue line is men. Men's risk goes up big time as you go below 220. Okay, the women take a little while. You might see some improved risk down to 180, but then again, it starts to take off. Now, if we move up to 45 to 54 years old, women start, again, the risk starts to take off at about, call that 210-ish, right? And at 180, 140, you're skyrocketing. And again, as you go up in age, the angle gets worse, okay? So what you can see is as we go up in age here, the angle gets worse and your risk of death gets worse going lower than going higher, right? So yeah, the risk of death is going up this way too, but look at the angle compared to this one. Going lower is the worst direction to go versus going higher as you age. And so if you average everybody, all the decades, the sweet spot is actually about 220 across the 13 million people across all the decades that they studied. So, then it begs the question, well, why the heck does the total cholesterol normal range continue to drop over the years? The only answer I can have for that is it's not based on data, right? It's got to be based on shareholders, because, there's no scientific or clinical support for what the normal range says.